Welcome to Auto Mundial, the weekly car news and review show where this week we have the all-new EQS, Mercedes electric limo.
We also have a special edition Ford GT and a new hot hatch from Abarth.
Plus, iX3 versus iPace and the new Nissan Qashqai. Is it still the go-to small SUV? All that's coming up, but first, the news.
In anticipation of the latest James Bond film, Aston Martin has been busy lining a London street with some of their latest and greatest cars, including a 1:1 scale model of the iconic DB5. We say model, but it's actually a real car parked inside a replica Corgi box on display just outside Battersea Power Station. It's packed full of all the same gadgets found in the original toy car, including the bullet shield, revolving number plates, and some hidden machine guns. Also on display is a film-used DB5 sporting some battle scars, Bond's V8 Vantage, a DBS Superleggera, an Aston F1 car, and a new Valhalla supercar, guaranteed to stop London commuters in their tracks.
While the new electric Fiat 500 is busy garnering praise wherever it goes, it seems that there's still plenty of love for its petrol-powered sibling. In particular, 500s like this, the new Abarth 695 SS. Yep, not a brand to let things die off quietly. The Italian purveyors of fast Fiats have given us yet another special edition of the loudest hot hatch of them all. It seems that there's a new limited edition Abarth every 5 minutes, but this one promises to be the fastest in the current lineup. Different from the 595 SS, the 695 boasts some bespoke upgrades. The bonnet is now aluminium and sports some boisterous power bulges to mark it out from lesser versions. It also gets a new Akrapovic exhaust for a 10 kilogram weight saving. It borrows some aero from the 695 70th Anniversario in the form of a brilliantly cool Lancia Delta-style adjustable rear spoiler. It can be angled from 0 to 60 degrees, allowing up to 42 kilograms of extra downforce. There are some special 695 badges, but otherwise it's a regular 595 SS underneath, which itself is just a spec'd up 595 Competizione. We never said the Abarth 595 range was simple. Anyway, that means it gets a boosty 1.4-litre engine producing 178 brake horsepower. That may not sound like a lot, but in a car as big as a medium-sized dog, it's plenty. Plant your right foot and it will eagerly get you from 0 to 62 in 6.7 seconds in a cloud of tyre smoke, eventually topping out at 140 miles per hour. Whichever Abarth you go for though, you'll get something special. With Sabelt, bucket seats and carbon fibre trim, the 595 really does feel like a baby supercar, especially when you hear the rambunctious noise from the tailpipes. For all we know, there could be another half a dozen special edition Abarths before they go electric, but they're worth enjoying while they last.
BMW design, as of late, has been bold, divisive, and anything but subtle. It seems odd then that for its new full EV, the brand has, on the face of things, played it quite safe. In fact, at first glance, it looks like a regular X3. Based on the same mid-size SUV platform, this electric X3, or iX3 as it's known, looks to be a much more mainstream product than the brand's previous electric efforts, the beautiful i8 and the excellent i3. It does get a few styling tweaks though to help it stand out from its internal combustion counterparts. The front bumper has been smoothed over and the kidney grills have been filled in to improve the aerodynamics in the name of efficiency. To further aid this, it gets some aero alloy wheels which improve the car's drag coefficient by around 5%. At the back end, the rear bumper has been given the same smooth treatment as the front one, and there are two blue plates where the exhaust pipes would normally live. Inside, family buyers will be pleased to learn that despite the extra batteries, cabin space remains largely unchanged. It does lose 40 litres of boot space, but there's still plenty of room for passengers. The rest of the interior is identical to the standard X3s, apart from a few flashes of blue and an iX3 badge on the centre console. From launch, there are two trim levels to choose from. The Premier Edition comes as standard with a panoramic sunroof, adaptive suspension and semi-autonomous capabilities, as well as all the usual luxuries that you'd expect to find in a BMW SUV. Powering the iX3 is an 80 kilowatt-hour battery, with drive going to the rear wheels. It produces 282 brake horsepower and can hit 62 miles per hour from rest in under 7 seconds. The range is decent enough at 279 miles, although that won't be troubling rivals from Tesla or Jaguar.
Speaking of which, this is becoming an increasingly popular corner of the market, and the car to beat is this, the Jaguar I-Pace. In EV terms, the Jag has been around for a while now, but it's still just as impressive as it was when we first saw it in 2018. While it isn't quite as commodious as the BMW, the Jag is a great family car with lots of cabin space and a decent boot. On the road, it feels sporty but not uncomfortable, and while there's plenty of performance, it'll hit 0 to 62 in 4.8 seconds, keep your right foot buried and you'll soon see the 292-mile range figure start to tumble. On the style front, the I-Pace still looks fantastic inside and out. By using a bespoke EV platform, Jaguar was able to bring the cockpit forwards, creating a unique design in the process. The interior, while fancy, isn't as ergonomic as the BMW's. JLR's new Pivi Pro infotainment system is better than the old one, but it can still be fiddly to use all of the touch-sensitive controls on the move.
Overall though, the Jag is still our class favourite. The iX3 is a step in the right direction for BMW though, and a statement of intent for more EVs to come.
After the break, Nissan's new Qashqai and the Mercedes EQS. Coming up, Mercedes' new all-electric limousine. But first,
the Ford GT is surely one of the world's most desirable supercars. With race pedigree and a history that can be traced back to the 1960s and victories at Le Mans, it's easy to see why. Indeed, the new GT itself had its own success in endurance racing, with a class win at the 2016 running of the Le Mans 24 Hours. something that no doubt sealed Ford's V6 supercar's popularity. After all, as Ford's old marketing slogan goes, win on Sunday, sell on Monday. The GT may have been with us for a few years now, but production is still going for the lucky few who managed to get their names down for one. And now Ford has unveiled this, the GT64 Prototype Heritage Edition. As the rather lengthy name suggests, it pays homage to the only surviving 1964 prototype GT40 with a matching livery. Finished in Wimbledon white, the limited edition GT features various extras including antimatter blue carbon fibre wheels, unique graphics, and lots of extra carbon. The 60s original may be a beautiful and priceless piece of automotive history, but the new one isn't bad either. Behind the cockpit sits a twin turbocharged V6, producing 651 brake horsepower, powering the GT from 0 to 62 in a whisker over 3 seconds, topping out at 216 miles per hour. Ford hasn't announced how many of these very special cars it will build, and neither has it given us a price, but we suspect there won't be many, and they certainly won't be cheap.
For years now, the Nissan Qashqai has been the UK's best-selling SUV thanks to its combination of practicality and good value. Very impressive, especially when you consider the current second-gen car has been on sale since 2013. Now though, finally, there's a new one. And it seems that Nissan hasn't mucked about too much with its popular family SUV recipe. While it looks familiar, the styling has been thoroughly modernised and now incorporates the Japanese brand's new design language that we've already seen on the new Juke and Micra. Nissan has sold over 1 million crossovers in the UK alone since the first Qashqai launched in 2007, so understandably the styling isn't at all showy or over the top. It looks smarter and chunkier than the old car, despite it only growing 35mm in length and 32mm in width. The roof is painted in contrasting black paint to create a lower stance, while optional big alloy wheels help it to look a bit more premium. Inside, the new Qashqai is even more practical than before thanks to an extended wheelbase for more passenger space. The boot is bigger too, now up to 504 litres, while up front the cup holders have been moved to make gear changes a bit easier. It may not be the flashiest interior in the class, but it looks nice and modern with some horizontal dashboard architecture and a big infotainment screen with built-in Google Street View, as well as Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. Perhaps the biggest shake-up to the Qashqai formula is under the bonnet. Nissan has decided to ditch all the diesel engines available in the old car, with buyers now getting a choice of an updated version of the old 1.3 petrol, now with mild hybrid assistance and a new e-Power model. The 1.3 is available with either 138 or 156 brake horsepower and front or all-wheel drive. The e-Power model, though, works a bit differently. Unlike a full-series hybrid like a Toyota Prius, the 1.5-litre petrol motor doesn't give any drive to the wheels, instead acting as a generator to power the batteries and electric motors. In theory, this version should drive much like an electric car, but without the hassle of charging it.
But if the Qashqai wants to hold on to its crown in the segment it spawned, it will need to face up to some stiff competition. This is the Skoda K-Roc, and while it might not have the heritage of the Nissan, it's one of our favourite cars in this class. Unlike the Peugeot 3008 or the new Vauxhall Grandland X, its styling is rather conservative. The exterior is restrained and classy, but the cabin takes that attitude a bit too far with lots of drab grey plastic and little in the way of flamboyance. But to most family buyers, the main draws will be the K-Rock's versatility and practicality. If you go for the VarioFlex rear seat option, you can alter the amount of passenger space and boot capacity you have, giving you a bit more room than you get in the Nissan. There's a much broader selection of petrol and diesel engines too, although no full hybrid model like the Qashqai's e-Power system.
Cars like the Skoda Karoq, though, wouldn't exist if Nissan hadn't created such a popular segment of the market when it first released its hatchback-sized Qashqai in 2007. But we'll have to wait and see if this new car continues its best-selling legacy.
In 2019, Mercedes treated us to what we thought would be the future of luxury cars, an electric alternative to the S-Class with a staggering cabin and even more impressive exterior. Its one-bow design and seamlessly integrated lights left our bottom jaws on the floor. In true concept car style, it featured enormous 24-inch alloys pushed out right to the corners, while up front a huge grille panel housed an illuminated Mercedes badge and 188 LED lights animated to create some incredible effects. And now, 2 years later, we finally have a production version and, well, it isn't exactly what we were expecting. While it's unreasonable to expect any production car to look exactly like the design concept, it seems that this, the all-new Mercedes EQS, has strayed further from the concept car than most. It isn't a bad-looking car, not at all, but it certainly lacks the wow factor of the 2019 design study. Perhaps we're being a little unfair. The styling does certainly share a few design cues with the concept, but it's an altogether more sensible-looking car. It's as if the designers were working from an email describing how the Vision EQS looked, without seeing any pictures of it at all. But anyway, looks, of course, are subjective, and the EQS is a genuinely interesting-looking electric limousine, but it's on the inside where the concept car influence really becomes clear. Step inside the EQS and you could be forgiven for thinking you were in some sort of futuristic prototype. The dashboard, if you can call it that, is made up of a series of screens, outlined by some blue ambient lighting and a full-width air vent along the top. It's bright and airy and almost as advanced as a concept car. The optional massive 55.5-inch digital dashboard, known as the Hyperscreen, may be a magnet for fingerprints, but there's no denying its capabilities. It knows when there's a passenger in the front and changes its display accordingly. It can also learn your behaviour and driving habits, so it can suggest functions when it thinks you'll need or want them, saving you from scrolling through various menus as you drive. This being a limo, the tech does not stop in the front. If you're lucky enough to find yourself in the back of an EQS, you'll be treated to just as much luxury. The seats are electrically adjustable, heated and cooled, and of course there are some more screens to keep you entertained as you silently waft along in absolute comfort.
From launch, there are two different versions available. The entry-level EQS 450 Plus and a more powerful all-wheel drive version called the EQS 580 4MATIC. Both cars can travel up to 478 miles on a charge thanks to Mercedes' new generation of battery technology. They can be charged using 200 kilowatt DC rapid charging, which will get the higher spec cars from 10% to 80% charge in half an hour, adding up to 186 miles in just 15 minutes. Unsurprisingly, the EQS is rather heavy, tipping the scales at a smidge under 2.5 tons for the top spec car. As a result, the cheaper 392 brake horsepower rear-wheel drive car will do 62 miles per hour from a standstill in 6.2 seconds. Not bad, but hardly Porsche Taycan performance. Stump up some extra cash for the 516 brake horsepower 580, and that time drops to a much more impressive 4.3 seconds. Even more excitingly though, Mercedes has confirmed that there's an AMG version in the works with over 700 horsepower that should see it take on the likes of the Taycan and the Audi RS e-tron GT in terms of straight-line pace.
So while the EQS may be a disappointment to some on the styling front, it seems it will set a very high standard for all upcoming EV limos.
Join us again next week on Auto Mundial as we check out a new crossover from Toyota, the Yaris Cross.